Yesterday, the city issued a media statement, and we can only accept that this media statement was issued in order to take the sting out of what they expected would be revealed here today. This media statement, and I will briefly go through it, this media statement contains 4 statements that is not the truth. The first statement is that the city yesterday, and I emphasize yesterday, cancelled the PU contract. The second statement is that they did yesterday call for an urgent meeting with the service provider in order to discuss the continuation of services and the resolution of the exit from the contract. That statement too is not correct. Thirdly, they state that the rollout of smart meters was impeded because of the legal action by Afri Sake, who sought a review of the manner in which the contract was concluded. That statement too is not correct, and I will show you why it is not correct. And fourthly, they stated that they had applied to NERSAL for permanent exemption for the smart meters which were rolled out and installed in the city over the last year and a half. They say that they've withdrawn that application for exemption at this stage. Now, I will deal with that application of exemption in the main body of this briefing, but that statement also is not correct. In fact, it is a very serious statement because NERSAL would not have allowed them a permanent exemption to fit substandard prepaid electricity meters in the city. The city had been, or the service provider and the city has knowingly been rolling out and installing a smart meter of a standard that is not compliant with South African national minimum standards. The meter that they installed did not have the ability for users to monitor and control their electricity usage through a customer interface unit, which should have been part of this rollout inside the house. The reason why they raised NERSAL is simply because if they could not get the exemption, it meant that every single one of the meters for which we have so far, according to them, paid 830 million rand for the rollout would have had to be taken back, and they would have had to start all over again rolling out compliant meters. That is a major problem for the city. Dealing with the first statement, that they cancelled the transaction yesterday. You will have in your media packs before you a presentation dated the 27th of March 2015. This is a presentation made by TUMS, the Total Utilities Management Systems Company, a subsidiary of PU Capital Partners, who holds the contract with the city, presenting to the city, after previous negotiations, the 4 exit contract strategies that could be followed. And this presentation already shows that the city has chosen to adopt exit strategy number, or option 2B. Since I have been given this media statement by the city, I have also gone through my records, and I have here a letter which I will distribute to you all, dated the 30th of April, by the city manager to the Chief Executive Officer, Ms. Busi Chili of PU Capital Partners and Total Utilities Management Company. The letter is titled, Termination of Master Services Agreement, MSA concluded between the parties on 6 June 2013. I would like to extend my apologies. I will be traveling but wanted to provide some communication before I leave. I acknowledge the discussions held to date on the mutual termination of the master services agreement concluded between the parties. In other words, the termination of this agreement was already negotiated in March and had reached its finality at the end of April. It is only now, shortly before the State of the City address, that the Mayor, compelled by what he was expecting would come out in this media briefing, has given out a media statement to the effect that he terminated the agreement. He did not terminate the agreement. They agreed to terminate the agreement for the reasons that we will be going through today. So the second issue is that he called upon the service provider to attend negotiations on how to resolve the matter. Again, the documents are already before you. It is set out in the presentation what the options are. They've already chosen the option. And that option, and that is the reason why we are having this media briefing here, is if it is not properly publicly vented, and if it is implemented in the form in which they have it in that presentation and in other correspondences in our possession, that exit contract strategy will cost the city in excess of 1.242 billion rand over the next 2 years. That means that this contract would have cost us 830 million to date, and we would have had to, or we would have to pay another 1.242 billion rand over the next 2 years. It is money that the City of Tshwane, under the present circumstances, does not have. This means that the ratepayers of Pretoria are called upon to pay the price of 8 Nkandlas to exit this contract. At the time when the city decided to call it quits, just 12,900 of the agreed 437,000 prepaid electricity smart meters had been installed, and these installations were at the most lucrative large power user consumers of the city. In other words, they started with the people who were paying 100% of their accounts and were using the most electricity. These 12,900 meters account for 50% of the city's electricity usage. So for just 12,900 meters, TUMS were receiving 50% of the total amount that they would be receiving if the other 437,000 prepaid meters were installed. And then they say they couldn't get finance. You know, I don't know how much more than 830 million rand you need to install a few meters, but they said they can't get the finance. The city issued a media release yesterday. I referred to that already. The Mayor chose option 2B from the presentation that is before you, which will have the catastrophic consequences for the city over the next 2 years. He intended to announce his contract exit agreement at the State of the City address tomorrow. When the contract was initially tabled in Council, the city's executive mayor justified its approval on the basis that the contract was entirely off balance sheet and that the city would not incur any costs on account thereof, as it was self-funding from the cash flows of an agreed 19.5% service fee on electricity revenue actually collected. The service fee was held up to be 8% below the actual cost of collection, that the city incurred the collect its electricity revenue under the existing post-paid regime. Now, I must emphasize that the Democratic Alliance is in favor of a smart metering option for the city. But it is not necessary to have a service provider install this in the first place. Cities the world over take the responsibility for installing prepaid smart meter systems in their own processes. They train the people inside. The reason for not having a service provider do this is you place your revenue stream in the hands of a party that you have no control of. We sit now with a dilemma, and that is the reason for this exit agreement, is if Pew would walk away, who is going to read those meters? We don't have the infrastructure to do it. We don't have the back office functionality to do it. We have nobody trained to do it. So once this implementation has started through a third-party service provider, you place the city at an incredible loss for its revenue. And this cannot be done. And that was one of the big reasons right back in 2013 that we said we cannot have a service provider take our largest stream, our best stream of income from electricity revenue, take control of that and basically become the owner of the data. This is a very good reason why this thing should be done in-house. So from the DA's perspective, this whole thing should have been done by the city internally.
What is once more being highlighted here is absolute mismanagement of public funds. And we may ask the question, who loses out on 2.4 billion rand? It is not just the taxpayer per se, it is every citizen, but more specifically the poorest of the poor. Those whose lives should be uplifted. When money is wasted, such as in this instance here, when nothing is being received in return for this huge expense, then the person needs to ask the question, why does this continue day in and day out? This is nothing else but another buy-out situation. And we will definitely not condone it as the official opposition in this province and in this city. In fact, we will be investigating every avenue to try and get this money or this contract declared null and void. And we will pursue whatever means we can and avenues we can to hold those who had made this decision accountable. Because it is only when a person takes officials and politicians and holds them personally accountable that we are going to be able to get to the end of such malpractices into the future. And I can assure you from a provincial perspective, we will continue to do whatever we can in terms of through the Department of Finance and also calling on the Premier to intervene in this matter.
I have approached MEC Barbara Creasy, whom you all know is the MEC for Provincial Treasury, on the matter. And two questions specifically were asked in terms of contingency plans in place to assist the Metro in financial distress, because that's what we're talking about here. And whether there is financial distress, will she intervene? Now, according to me, she's failing to do that, and she's very reactive and shifting the responsibility once again to National Treasury by just informally explaining to me that she doesn't have a mandate to intervene into a metro, but, Member Randall, I will be prepared to assist National Treasury with cost recovery measures. This is failing our city once again. So we've already, between myself and my leader, we have then forwarded these questions through our members of parliament to National Treasury, and we are awaiting their response. Now, the short of this whole sad story is that the ANC government in this province and city has once again chosen to sacrifice the financial sustainability of the city and service delivery to our people, including poorest of the poor, by safeguarding their cadres and their covering for their own interests.
Who has to pay for that? The consumers, the community. And they pay for it through rates and service charges. So you can expect that if we have to include the 600 million for year one, or 600 billion for year one on the budget, when we consider it at the end of May, that will be added onto the tariff that every citizen in this city pays for property rates, electricity, water, sewage and rubbish removal. And it will increase debtors because it's becoming unaffordable. Our consumers cannot continue paying at levels that far exceeds the current inflation rate because of the inefficiencies in the municipality, and in particular in financial management areas.
This cancellation of this contract surely benefits PEW to a large extent. This failure is costing not only the taxpayers of Tshwane the 8 Nkandlas, we are depriving the underdeveloped areas of the money worth of 8 Nkandlas to develop that areas. And at a oversight meeting yesterday, it was announced that in service delivery department We've got more than 4,000 authorized positions, and only 1,800 of them are funded. The rest are unfunded, so there's no people to deliver services. And in the light of that, I'm surely emphasize the fact that and we call on the Mayor, Councillor Ramagopa, and the Municipal Manager, Mr. Nkubeni, to act honorably and resign from their positions.